This is The Red Lens.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Cris von Erik, and this is The Red Lens. Franklin, how are you this afternoon?
Dude, I'm doing real well. I'm excited about today's show, man. Lay it on me.
That sounds weird. It sounds weird saying afternoon instead of evening for us, but we are on a special day and time.
We're versatile.
What'd you say?
We're versatile.
Yes, absolutely. If nothing else, we are versatile here. But we're doing this because we have a very special guest coming on here with us. He is the author of such books as Renegade Dating. He is the founder of the CAD Academy. He is the international Dapper Casanova, internet's leading playboy and dating expert. You guys all watch him on Rule Zero. I know I do. It is Mr. Troy Francis, and he's here with us right now. What's up, Troy? How are you?
I'm very good, man. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing all right.
Franklin wanted you on secondarily because he knows that you would have the inside track of all the Meghan and Harry stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, to some extent, yeah. I mean, I wish I had the real inside track, but yeah, I've certainly been following it quite closely. So
You couldn't get a hold of him and slap him around a little bit? What's the matter with him?
Mate, I mean, it's
bad.
It's very sad, and I mean, like, we remember the glory days when Harry was sort of like young, free, and single, and there was a time he went to Vegas, and he was staying, I think, at the Encore Hotel, and he jumped in the pool naked, and just all this crazy stuff, and there were all these different girls and things, and it's a sad state of affairs that we have today with what's happened. So,
Yeah. And I mean, we broke this down, Franklin. We went through some of his old flames, and they were like princesses, and some of them were really attractive. They would
break him down.
Well, he had that one Chelsea Davy for a while, the blonde girl. I think she was actually from New Zealand, or I don't think she was British, but she was all right. She was pretty cute. I don't know. I mean, obviously he could have had his pick, couldn't he?
Oh.
I mean, and it's just really it's a sad state of affairs to see what's happened.
I know a lot of the Rule Zero guys. They're involved and whatnot. Are you single? Are you married?
Well, I've actually got a girl at present, so who I've had for who I've been seeing for a while. I mean, so I haven't made any secret of that because I don't like to. You get content creators and they sort of like they say one thing publicly and they're doing something else privately, and I think that's the wrong thing. I mean, like because I've been making content about this stuff for a few years, and previously I was just out hitting it hard all the time, and I was writing about that and making content about that. And the truth is, at the moment, I'm not so much because I've with this girl, but I mean we're not living together. It's not that kind of a situation. In fact, until quite recently, we were only really seeing each other like once or twice a week. It was because of the lockdown we got thrown together for a period of time. So my focus in terms of the content has shifted a little bit because the other thing is I'm coaching guys as well. So I'm creating a lot of content about sort of like mindset type stuff and how to get yourself in the right frame in order to go out and be good with girls and be good socially. But I'm not saying to people, well, this is what I did last week. Why don't you try it? Because I've taken my foot off the gas. But I mean, let's see. I mean, obviously these things go to let's see how it works out. But as I say, I mean, it's not like we're not living together. We spent a lot of the lockdown together, but we are living in separate places. There's no plans at the moment to sort of like take it anything further. So it's reasonably sort of free and easy, if you like, I suppose.
Now, do you find it difficult to date? With your career and what you're doing.
Oh mate, it's really funny. It's been like a complete nightmare, to be honest, with her. I mean, I hope she's not watching the show. If she is, sorry. But we have had quite a few run-ins about it, to be honest, because initially she didn't know what I was doing because I didn't come out and tell her. I didn't say, oh, I've got this, I do these YouTube videos and, have you heard of the red pill? I'm not sort of like going into that. And then she found out, and then we had different blow-ups about different things. I mean, by and large, she's, she kind of accepts it. I mean, she didn't want me to be, say, filming in-field videos. When you film a video where you go up and talk to a girl and all that kind of thing. She didn't want me, making any more of those, which is, you can see her point. So that was one thing. But the rest of it, she's, she's kind of, she does her own thing. She gets it. She gets that, there's a like professional aspect to this, and she's reasonably cool with it.
Well, you tell her, well, honey, it's everybody else. It's not you.
Exactly. But it's a funny thing that you mentioned that, because I think with that, it depends how you set it up at the start, because I have friends. Well, obviously, like we all know other people who work in this industry, and I've got there's one guy I'm very good friends with who is quite a big content creator, and he's very upfront with girls about what he does. Like after maybe they've met, or maybe they've had sex, and then a couple of days down the line, he'll say, "Listen, actually, this is what I do. This is my stuff. Blah blah blah. Take it or leave it." And what you find is actually a lot of girls do actually buy into it. They're just like, oh, all right. They find it quite a turn on in a way. They're just like, oh, right, okay. And they're happy to go along with it for a period of time. But you get that grace period, don't you? And then like any girl, if she likes you, is then going to want to say, well, hang on a minute, where's this going? Are we, sure, sure you're not going to be doing all that naughty misogynist stuff for the rest of your life,
Where do you see us in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, I find that even with what we do, and we're not really even coaching anybody, we're just interviewing people and kind of talking about general wide range topics with guys. And I have female friends that are like, do you really think that way? And who are these people? I can't, I can't believe they think that way.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of it depends on the woman, doesn't it? Because I've got there's a girl that I've known for years and years, and not romantically. I mean, she's just like somebody I've known, and she actually does some content herself, and she's a musician and stuff like that. And she's like vaguely aware of this stuff. She knows about some of the stuff I've done and everything, and she's sort of like she sort of gets it. Do you know what I mean? Like she's not. I wouldn't say she's like a fully paid up. She's not like a red pill girl or anything like that. But she does kind of get it, and you can have those conversations with her and say, well, look, this is the reality of how gender relations go down. She'll be like, yeah, no, you're probably right. Girls can be like this. Women can do these things in these situations. So it kind of depends on the woman. Do you know what I mean?
And your family, do they know about your job?
They do actually. I mean, like they're reasonably sort of supportive of it. I mean, I try not to sort of like my mum doesn't. I try not to encourage her to sort of watch too much of the stuff, or my dad's kind of on board with it. I mean, my dad gets it. I think in terms of the how it can be made into a sort of a career, if you like. Probably my sisters would be less enthusiastic. But I don't know really. I mean, in the end, you have to follow your path, don't you? Do you know what I mean? You can't be trying to please sort of like other people too much of the time.
No, absolutely. And speaking about following your path, have you always lived in? It's London, right? You're in London right now.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, I moved around a bit when I was younger. I lived in Manchester, which is in the north of England, for a period of time, and that was where I did my first. That was where I first seriously got into, let's say, womanizing. I wasn't really into game at that point because I hadn't really heard of it, and but prior to 2004 or 2005 when the game came out, I was still out and about, like hitting on girls and having some success, the nightclubs and things. It was just that I hadn't like learned any of this stuff yet, And then after 2005, I started to learn it and study it and all the rest of it. So I lived there, then London really the rest of the time. But I mean, saying that, I spent a bit of time in Berlin because I've got a little base sort of over there, so there's a possibility I might just decamp to Berlin for a period of time, which is good because it's kind of central in Europe, so it's really easy to get around Europe, and obviously there's cool places to go like Europe, Eastern Europe, all the rest of it. So yeah, you know, but London is, I mean, people have criticism of it and everything, but you know, it's kind of like home, and there's a lot of good aspects as well as bad here, you know.
Now, Franklin, have you been to London?
I've been to England a few times, as a matter of fact. I wanted to ask you. You said, you know, Berlin and places like that. What about Odessa? Places like that. I mean, the women there are just they just get better and better looking. There's not an ugly woman in Odessa, and they all know it. What's that all about?
Well, I haven't actually been to Odessa, but I have been to Kiev.
Okay.
So I do know like Ukrainian women, etc. Have you actually been to Odessa?
No, I haven't. I'm just going.
Okay.
I've got a lot of friends who have been, and
because I would have,
story.
Yeah, because I've been looking just recently at where's open and where you can go, like, and obviously coast, you know, like sort of seaside type places, and like if it hadn't been for COVID, that I probably would have tried to visit Odessa this year because it's good to go in the season, you know, during the summer.
Right.
As it is at the moment, I don't think. Well, actually, no. Saying that, I think we can get into Ukraine actually, but you kind of have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So obviously that's I mean, how strictly they're applying it, I don't know. So you know, I would love to get to Odessa. Whether it will be this summer or not, I don't know. But Ukraine, Kiev, I've certainly been there, and yeah, I mean, you know, stunning women. It's a kind of a magical place, really. And also, you know, I've been to Russia as well. I've been to like Moscow a few times. I've been to St. Petersburg a few times. Again, amazing women, you know. But all of Eastern Europe, really, that Slavic kind of look is pretty mind blowing. But yeah, Kiev. I think Ukraine. There is something very there is something very special about the girls there. Actually, when I was in Kiev, what I noticed is that. Whereas in many cities, you can look around and they'll be like, oh, there's a really beautiful girl. There's a really beautiful girl. You know, but they're sort of like every 5 women or every 10 women or something. In Ukraine, it's like basically every
one.
Yeah, or at least every second one. It's like, whoa, she's amazing. Whoa, she's amazing. Whoa, she's amazing. It's like, you know, so yeah, I mean, there's definitely something in the water there for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. And they all seem to know it too.
Well, I mean, you say that, but in terms of approaching in places, I mean, of course, what guys were always looking for a few years ago was to be able to go somewhere like former Soviet Union and be able to meet girls, and it was going to be easier, you know, because they were Western, like you were American or you're maybe British or whatever, and like you go over there, and there was always that idea that you would have higher value because you know, because you were Western and maybe you have more money and all this sort of thing. And to be honest, that is lessened these days. I mean, Prague, for example, in Czech Republic, I'm told like 15 years ago or so was just, you know, kind of this incredible place because the girls there were very attractive. And, you know, British guys would go over there and the girls would just freak out because they'd never met anybody from the West before. Oh my God, you know, and it was sort of, you know, easy pickings, or a sort of mutually really beneficial thing. These days, not quite so much the case. Same in Poland as well. You know, they've all met British guys. A lot of them have been to London. You know, a lot of particularly Polish women have spent time in the UK and all the rest of it. So there's less of that exotic factor. And the same in Ukraine. But there's still a little bit of it. Do you know what I mean? Like if I went to Ukraine and if I go to Kiev and I do 10, say, day game approaches, I'm likely to get better responses than I am in London. Because in London, particularly British women, but even women of other nationalities who live here, they are very, I mean, it's probably like Manhattan in the sense that they're very up themselves, you know, and they're very sort of, they've got that bitch shield and everything like that. And you've still got a bit of exotic value in somewhere like Ukraine or in Russia. And the other thing as well is I'm not sure exactly in Ukraine, but certainly in some of the Russian cities, the population is more female than male. There are more women than men. So they're also kind of short of men as well. So you've got that advantage as well.
Well, that's actually good to know.
Yeah. So it's not, you know, like Ukrainian girls outside of the Ukraine tend to be very bitchy and, you know, or they can be very bitchy and up themselves. But actually in Ukraine themselves, they can be very sweet and very nice.
Actually met a really nice Ukrainian girl in, of all places, Liverpool.
Oh,
And,
really?
Yeah. And she was actually pretty cool. I mean, she only had like a day, and I met her. I forget where I met her, and we couldn't spend too much time together. But she was actually really cool. And the rest of the time there was trying to decipher what the Liverpool girls were saying.
Did you like Liverpool?
I did, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I did. I liked it a lot. It kind of reminds me of like an industrial, sort of like a bit of an industrial area.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to spend a bit of time up there when I was back in the day, because obviously living in Manchester, it's not very far. That you've got a few cities like together there, and we used to go to the clubs there and stuff. And it's it was always a fun place. I mean, they've got a very distinct accent for sure.
Oh, and how?
But the girls, I mean, you go there and all the women are wearing these ridiculous, like, tiny skirts and all this kind of thing. It's like, it's crazy.
And they're always so, like, ready to go out and party and have a really good time. I mean, that's what I've seen.
Yeah, it's a very fun place. It's a very sort of lot of nightlife and stuff.
Sounds like I got to get over to Liverpool.
Yeah, definitely.
So, do you feel women are universal, regardless of geographic regions, or does that make it a little bit nuanced?
What about in terms of how they react and so on?
Yeah.
No, I think there are. Well, I mean, I think broadly, human nature is human nature. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think female nature is female nature, male nature. Because like guys, I suppose, as Rollo would say, want maximum access to to maximum sexuality, or whatever the phrase is, and women are looking for the best the alpha bucks, beta bucks, the best sort of genetic provider, and also the best provider. So I don't think that really changes, but I think there are definitely differences for sure. I mean, like the women in Russia, for example, like to get to Moscow from here, it's like 4 hours in the plane, and you get out in Moscow or St. Petersburg, and it's like being on a different planet. It's just crazy, because culturally it's so different, and the women are very different there as well, just in the way that they come across. You sit with a British woman and have a conversation with her, and then you sit with a Russian woman and in Russia, and it's a very different thing, So yeah, I think there are those differences, but like as with globalization, I mean, obviously all these girls in Russia, they've got Facebook, they've got the internet, they've got so it like St. Petersburg in particular is quite hipster now. It's becoming like this kind of hipster type place, and girls are getting tattoos and all of that. So I think it's lessening, but I think still, like, geographically there are differences for sure.
Now, I remember hearing you on a few one of the other broadcasts that you said you were pretty wild in your college years.
Yeah,
and you said that played a big part in your reevaluation of what you wanted to do with your life. Could you speak a little bit to that time?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was in Manchester, I was just partying a lot. I'd left home. I lived in the south of England. I was 18. I'd had a reasonably kind of turbulent childhood and everything else. So I was quite glad to get away. Went to this city in the north of England that was a real party city at the time. I mean, I don't know if you guys. There was a club called the Hacienda that was owned by the band New Order. That Morrissey and the Smiths were from there. There was all this massive electronic music scene and stuff. It was, it was a real sort of like nightlife place, as well as being actually quite economically deprived and everything at the time as well. But it was real buzzing party place, and it was a very easy place to just go off the rails. And that's sort of what happened in a way. I mean, I went to college and I was just drinking a lot. I was doing some other substances and things like that, just going to the clubs the whole time. But it was a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, obviously that is bad, because it messed up my life for quite a long period of time. But on the other hand, it also ironically kind of awakened me as a person as well, because and sometimes when I try to teach guys about the mindset stuff and about becoming like that guy who's like sex worthy, as Julian RSD used to say, for me, in a funny way, it was actually attributable really to all that partying because I was drinking and I'm doing other things. And suddenly I was like, whereas before I'd been very in my head and very introverted and shy and low self-esteem, suddenly, like almost overnight, I was just like, you know, sorry, I don't want to demonetize you. And the way that I was coming across, which was probably quite cocky and quite, you know, sort of like maybe arrogant, maybe sort of there was a sort of a dangerous side to it, I suppose, in a small way. That actually turned out to be attractive to women. And so I was a virgin when I went to Manchester. And then as a result of that, I lost my virginity. And then suddenly I was on a roll, you know, I was on the, you know, and then I was on the treadmill of, you know, womanizing. And that went on for about the next 20 years, to be honest. And I couldn't get off. So it was good and bad, you know?
No, I say that a lot, that even here in the city, there was so many places, you know, one of the places, the Sound Factory comes to mind. And that was, I always tell people, if I could compare it, it was like what Studio 64 was in the 70s. That's what the Sound Factory was in the 90s and the early millennium for me, in terms of the club promotions. That's really where I got started. And you know, I know these stories, and without explaining them, I can share in your experiences of what that was, because that literally is what it was like in that place.
Well, actually, I was dating a girl. So I finally hooked up with this girl who was from Liverpool, actually, and she's pretty hot girl. And that is still my longest relationship, because we ended up going out for like 4 years, and I've never had a relationship that long. I mean, if it's 4 days these days, I'm good, you know. But that was and it was a mistake. It was a mistake, but I was very young. You know, I stayed with her, and I shouldn't have stayed with her, and it was a disaster for various reasons. But anyway, she was all into the clubs and things as well. And we went over to New York. It was the first time I visited Manhattan. I think it was 1999, because it was before the Twin Towers had come down. And we went to a place called Twilo. I don't know if you remember that.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we went to Twilo at the time, and I think who was playing, like the DJ Sasha, I think was regular there. So we went to that, and then I'd always loved New York, and I went back to Manhattan quite a few times in like the early 2000s. I was almost like addicted to it. I was going over a lot, but I was always sort of like, it's like anything really. I always wanted to be there, but like 10 years ago or 15 years, you know, because like I wanted to be there in the 90s or earlier in the 90s when a lot of the really cool club stuff was happening. But also I wanted to be there in the 70s or 80s, you know, in the taxi driver period as well.
Sure.
So
Nice.
yeah, so I was kind of looking around and trying to find that in places. But you've got like, you know, like the Lower East Side was really good at that time, you know, Alphabet City and stuff. So, you know, I haven't been over for quite a few years now, though, so I'm not sure what it's like now. But
yeah, there's not much right now. A lot of those places went out of business. You know what it is now? Now it's all international. It's about the mega places. Actually, Brooklyn is a huge place now, a huge borough. It's one of the boroughs here. And before COVID and all this garbage, there's a place called the Brooklyn Mirage, and it's an event place. So whether it's guys like Carl Cox and all these international guys, they'll come in and they'll do these Mondo, you know, 6 hours sets from, you know, midnight to 5 a.m. So or even longer. So
nice.
that's what it is now. It's really about the big international DJ, or sometimes they'll partner up and they'll do a twin set.
Oh, nice.
That and I mean that's a great place. Hey, I'll say this: if you ever find yourself over in New York again, get yourself over to the Mirage.
Mate, well, I will do. I mean, I'd love to come back again. You know, I'm supposed to be going to the States later this year, but yeah, I'd love to get over to New York again at some point. Definitely. I mean, I've done game there as well. Actually, it's obviously a great city for day game, and that's obviously where Paul Janka, if you're aware of him, the great day gamer, he cut his teeth over there. It's fantastic city for meeting women for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about the CAD Academy, the program that you have.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, so CAD Academy is basically a culmination of everything that I've learned over the last, 10 years or so, really, and just put into one course. And I filmed it all at the beginning of this year in January, because I knew that I wanted to do a larger program. And so I was working with like a cameraman. I obviously spent a lot of time working the whole thing out, working with a cameraman. We filmed it here where I am now. And it's like 10 hours worth of video of me talking about all aspects of dating and game, really, but with a particular focus on charisma, because what it struck me, having obviously had all of my own experiences, but also coaching guys as well, and hanging out with other guys who do game and do game professionally. What it struck me is that the thing that really makes the difference is charisma, or at least what you put across in the interaction. And why I say that is that I've got on video when I was coaching a guy last year, and he knew quite a lot about dating. He knew quite a lot about game. He knew kind of things to say. He knew how to open. He knew some stories to tell. He was able to keep the conversation going and stuff. But it was very, very flat. Do you know what I mean? Because he just got all this stuff off the internet, and he was sort of going through the motions, but there wasn't anything of him in it. Do you know what I mean? And I know from my own experience that when I've been successful and when I've punched above my weight with women that I've met, it's been when, not so much what I've said, but it's been with how I've put myself across, how I put my essence across. Do you know what I mean? And how I brought, say, sexuality into the interaction. So what I wanted to do in the program was really try to teach that. And so I've got a whole section about charisma, where I go into some of the science behind charisma, and I quote studies, and I reference some academic work on charisma, like how can charisma actually be learned. So I go through all of that. Then I talk about the bad boy archetype, because I think that the bad boy dark triad thing, really, really important, because we all know nice guys finish last, women like the bad boy. So great, but how do you do that? How do you become that guy? And then there's a section on radical differentiation, which is just basically, there's a lot about style in there, but it's basically about standing out. How do you walk into the bar and you stand out from everybody else, so people look around to look at you and draw attention to yourself? Do you know what I mean? By the way, all of this is at the beginning. There's a whole section on the global dating marketplace and why it's now essential to get your game up to scratch. So I cover global dating, some of the Red Pill stuff. And then the final section, which is the longest section, is just a complete game A to Z rundown. This is how you do game from, beginning to end sort of thing. So it's really like everything I've learned sort of encapsulated into one product. So they get that. And I also do 10 live Zoom webinars with it as well, the week after it's launched. So this is coming out quite soon, actually. The next intake is the 7th of August until the 11th. So it's like 5 days to enroll and come on board, and then it closes again.
And I have it on the screen here. They can go to realtroyfrancis.com.
Yeah, that's my website. So they can go there. I will shortly be uploading some posts, giving them information about where they can go and everything like that. I mean, my YouTube channel as well is obviously a good place to go, because I'll be doing some video content about it and everything. So if people follow me on YouTube, just type in Troy Francis, then I'll be releasing more information in the coming weeks, days and weeks.
What is the top 3 things that are the hardest things to get through to guys when you're trying to help them out?
The hardest things are, well, the first thing really is getting people to do the work, as Rich Cooper would say, because a lot of people come to this space because they want to improve, but they don't really want to put the action in. And unfortunately, there isn't a way, there isn't an easy way around this. There isn't a silver bullet kind of magic pill that if you just do these 5 things, then you're going to be betting Victoria's Secret models and it's all going to be great. For the average guy, and most of us are average guys, and even if you're very good looking, that doesn't. You're still not Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Unless you're Leo, then you're pretty much, you know, unless you've got some kind of stellar status, you're kind of an average guy, right? And for most average guys, you're going to have to put the legwork in. Okay, so the first thing is getting people to actually do the work. And be prepared for that. Then I suppose, you know, dealing with rejection is really hard for all of us. And actually, I've got a whole set of exercises in the course about how people can deal with rejection and try to make that a bit easier. So there's that. And then there is, I don't know, maybe escalation, you know, because it's sort of like, because guys will often open conversations. They'll often start interactions, but you've got to always be moving on to the next stage. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, it just it just evaporates, and there's no substance there.
Now, do you take it personally when guys can't get to the point where you're trying to get them to? I would imagine you do a lot of the times for you, because you pour so much into, just like you said before, the CAD Academy and getting those things, all that information together. It's got to be a really pain in the ass to have somebody just not get it.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, like, obviously, like, all of us want to help guys. Do you know what I mean? We are sharing our experiences, and trying to give some pointers to hopefully help out other guys along the way. But in the end, you know, if somebody is not going to take that action that's necessary, then that's kind of down to them. I mean, obviously, you'll try to push them in the right direction. You'll be on hand to help and everything else, but you can't, you know, in the end, it has to sort of come from them. You know, you have to. I think in any area of life, really, not just dating, like anything, like creating a business, being doing creative work or whatever, you know, like, you have to want it enough. So the resources are there to help you along the way, but you've got to take that and then build on it yourself. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just an occupational hazard, really. I mean, what is really obviously gratifying is when people do take the advice on, and then they come back and say, "Oh, I did X, what you said, and I had a really fantastic night, and I met, this girl," and whatever it is, I mean, that is obviously the icing on the cake of it.
You see, they're lucky that I'm not a dating coach, because I'd just be playing this to them.
I'm a loser.
You're done. Go away. No, but do you think feminism is the big elephant in the room for women and men to really be like truly happy together? Is that the is that the fly in the ointment, so to speak?
I mean, probably, yeah, to some extent. I mean, like, I try not to get.
It hasn't helped.
It hasn't helped. I try not to get too hung up on that side of things, really, because I just think in the end we have to play the deck of cards that's been dealt out to us. Do you know what I mean? That's why I'm not on board with the sort of, make women great again kind of message that you get from other dating companies, because or other men's self-help companies, because it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, there are many things in the world that I'm sure people would don't like and would like to see change, but realistically, how likely is that in your lifetime? And do you really want to spend all your energy and time and resources on trying to change something that, trying to sort of like, I don't know, create a different society? Or could you just spend that time on having a better life yourself? Do you know what I mean? And my personal philosophy has always been the latter. I just think, well, things are as they are. Some things are good, some things are bad, but how can I get the best out of my experience on Earth as possible? And there are we can, you can have a great life these days. I mean, it's kind of incredible what an awesome life a single guy, or even a guy in a relationship, but a single guy can have in this day and age. We've got cheap travel, we've got the internet, the ability to make money online. We've got, the dating apps. We've got, sex is easier to get than it was in the 50s. I mean, that's not an altogether bad thing, whatever people might say. So, So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positives for being alive today, and I prefer to just sort of concentrate on those really.
No, and I agree in lockstep with you. And that brings me to my next point, that I feel very sorry for the guys that we label them incels and black pill guys, because the point of view is so skewed where they're not even taking advantage of what you just talked about.
Yeah, well, we talked about the black pill guys a bit recently, because I know like John Modern Life Dating has been having some like arguments with some of them, I think, on their shows and things like that. And I mean, it's obviously it's kind of, it appears to be a big thing at the moment, the black pill philosophy. And the thing about it is, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with it, with everything they're saying. I mean, I think in many ways, I do disagree actually with one of the central tenets, which is that if you're not 6'5" and incredibly good looking and rich, then you're never going to get laid, so you might as well give up. I don't agree with that, but it's not that I have this very like Pollyanna-ish view of the world. And I think, oh no, everything's great, it's amazing, and and they're the sort of like, because I can be quite cynical as well. I've been accused of being nihilistic on Twitter, for some of the things I've said. I was talking about like monogamy and marriage and what seems to me the unfeasibility perhaps of those things. I've been accused of being a nihilist plenty of times myself, and but my question is, well, okay, there are, is life essentially a series of random events and then you die? Well, maybe it is, but what in the end, what are you going to do? Right? We've got like 70 years here. Are you just going to go, everything's shit, so I'm just going to lay in my room and complain? Or are you going to say, well, things are a bit shit, but look, I've got 70 years here. Let's just throw the dice and see what we can come up with. And I would rather take the latter approach. Do you know what I mean? So I don't necessarily disagree with the sort of the foundation of everything they're saying. But what I do think is that you can find hacks and you can beat the system. And I think that's what game really is about.
No, I agree. And see, Troy's a motivational speaker, Franklin.
I'm writing it all down.
He's segued right into a different career right here online. Right?
Hey, Tony Robbins. But
Tony Robbins, well, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
that is the golden money train, isn't it? But I don't know. I mean, I'm a sort of negative motivational speaker in a way. I mean, I don't really. My view of life is that it's fairly existential in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't really believe there's any massive overarching purpose. Do you know what I mean? I'm not really on board with the trad sort of philosophy of, let's make a better world and all that kind of thing. But I do kind of think I prefer the more pirate, like renegade philosophy in a way, which is a bit like, well, how can I hack the system? How can I use the 48 laws of power in order to get the things that I want to get, and that's really what game was about initially. Because if you think about game in its original form, it was sort of like to say, you are an average guy. How can you get above average results in the dating marketplace? Look at these psychological techniques. These things will help you to do that. And now, of course, we see guys, there's a lot of the success porn stuff around where guys are saying, no, get 17 Lambos and, make bank, and then, girls will come to you. And it's like, well, okay, that's one way. But the whole point of game initially was to bypass all of that and to be able to meet the attractive women anyway, So it's effectively like a series of hacks or a series of sort of tools or techniques to kind of beat the system.
What do you do to disconnect from the whole online thing? Like you go on vacation and get the hell away?
Well, I probably need to do a digital detox or something at some point. I mean, like, it's difficult, isn't
digital
it?
Detox.
Because I don't know about you, but I don't use social media very much outside of my doing this. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't, my personal stuff I don't really touch very much. I'm just basically doing it as part of this. So, and that means that obviously I read a lot of other people's, particularly Twitter, which is a bit of a, can be a bit of a cesspool at times, and I'm reading other people's tweets and all this kind of thing. And you can get sucked into stuff, can't you? So I try to just limit my time on them, really. I try to sort of sit down, schedule some tweets in the morning, do it via Hootsuite. So theoretically, I don't even have to go into Twitter, but obviously I do, but and then try and stay off it for periods of time. And I don't know, and they're just general things like exercise, going out for runs, going to the gym when gyms are open again, all of that stuff, and just trying to put the phone down. Also reading as well, reading actual books, I find is a big thing for me. And any activity where you're not on the internet is for a period of time is good.
Getting out there into the real world and doing and going places is what I would suggest to everybody out there. Absolutely. What motivates Troy Francis?
Doing good in the world. Well, I think I've always been quite a sort of addictive person, I think. And so, when I was doing a lot of my, like womanizing, if you like, and I don't want to put that entirely in the past tense, but you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I've been very compulsive around that for a long period of my life, but I've also been quite compulsive around work. And I mean, when I started doing this, like originally I was writing articles, I was writing for Return of Kings, and then I was writing for my own blog. And it was just, and then because I was creating this content about something that I was just deeply involved with, which was meeting girls and attracting girls and dating, it was very like the two things went together, and it was very addictive. And I was just like churning out more and more and more content, And then when I sort of started to do it as a full-time thing, then just you start to get motivated by other things, like wanting to create good quality content, or wanting to create content that's helpful to people, or wanting to come up with new ideas or communicate new ideas and things like that. So I just find the whole process of it really, really motivating, to be honest.
Okay.
That's terrific. Again, see, Troy is virtuous too. This is
absolutely.
This is going to be a great. You could share this to everybody after we're all done here. They could get a real idea of what you're all about.
Absolutely. Well, just Edward's saying what makes him an expert. I mean, it's a good question, right? Because it's a funny situation, isn't it, to put yourself up as being like, I'm a dating expert, or because it's like, well, I mean, how do you really quantify that? And I mean, look, in the end, when I started this, all I was doing was writing articles, because I wasn't doing any video at that time. I wasn't doing any, I was writing articles about my experiences. So if you look at the old articles that I wrote for Return of Kings, and I wrote about 200 articles for them or something. I mean, like loads. Basically, it was like every week, oh, I went out to the bar and I met this girl and this happened and X, Y, Z. And here's what I did. And maybe it worked, maybe it didn't work. And I'd write a lot about rejections. I'd write a lot about like, I tried, I went and I tried this with this girl and she told me to F off, or I was dating this girl and it all went disastrously wrong. And I was just sharing my own experiences. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And really, that's still the case. I'm not sort of like, I'm not claiming to be infallible. I'm not even claiming to be the world's greatest like seducer or anything like that. I mean, that's ridiculous. And actually, a lot of the stuff that I've done as well is observational. I've created a lot of content that's observational about other people, because what I've always found fascinating is to observe naturals in the wild, sort of thing. So guys who are just naturally amazing with women, and I've always been interested to like study them and to say, okay, so what can we learn from them? What can we learn from their behavior? Do you know what I mean? And try to distill it down, because a lot of those guys, they're not sitting around on the internet creating content. They're just going out and getting laid, and they don't really, maybe they can't or they don't want to articulate it. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, there it is, really. And I mean, like with any content creator, I mean, if people like what I have to say and they think I'm authentic, or they can see that authenticity, then they can, they can follow and everything else. If they don't have to. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I for one think you're extremely authentic. I think what you have to say is real, and it's important, and it can help a lot of guys out. So that's why, and this is the last thing I'll ask you, because I know you crunch for time. Where is Troy Francis going to be in, let's say, when 2030 begins?
Blimey, that's 10 years, isn't it? Well, I have certain financial goals that I want to hit in my life. I mean, I'm not talking like, I've never been massively motivated by money. So I've never been one of these guys who's sort of like, yeah, man, you know, I want to get the 15 Lambos and all of that. You know, I'm not really interested in that, but I've got some fairly modest like financial goals that I want to hit. And, you know, and I want to kind of set myself up for the next phase of my life, if you know what I mean. And I want to do more writing as well, because the reason I got into all of this really was writing, because I was a blogger. You know, I've written these books and things. And while I love doing the video stuff and doing like live streams and things, like I do, you know, writing is really like my key thing. So I think I want to not transition. I want to be doing more writing and maybe some like fiction projects and things as well. Not just, you know, not just dating and game stuff, but like moving it slightly more towards like fiction, or at least like fictionalized like memoirs and things like that. You know, like Bukowski is a big influence. So, you know, that kind of thing I think would definitely be where I'd like to be.
Well, that's tremendous. See, he's going to be a big time author too. Look at this.
Well, I've already got a load of books. I've already got a load of books out there, but whether, you know, I'm not exactly in the sort of like Stephen King category, but you know, like that Renegade Dating Blueprint bundle I've got. I mean, I've got like 11 books about dating and game. I mean, to be transparent, some of them are quite short. I mean, some of them are fairly, particularly in the. I've got this series called 50 Shades of Game, and each of the books is only about 25,000 words long, but it's part of a series, if you like. But nevertheless, you know, I've done quite a lot of writing, you know, and there's stuff out there, and the books sell really well, which is obviously very gratifying for me. But you know, I mean, like I would like to move it into some slightly different areas as well, you know, not just maybe necessarily writing about the game stuff forever, you know, maybe like broadening it out a little bit more. But obviously there's a lot of avenues we can take this in, I think, this sort of like, you know, space that we're in.
I agree. And I think no matter what avenue you go down, I think it's going to be successful. And I can't wait to see what you have coming out. I really can. Thanks,
man. I really appreciate it. It's really nice to say.
Well, and I appreciate you taking time to come on the program. I really do.
No, not at all. It's really great to come on, mate. It's thank you so much, both of you guys, and yeah, really enjoyed it.